Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack on Productions. Today we have another exciting Bristol Motorsports for you all. And today's contestants is Dale Earnhardt playing Majin Vegeta versus Kyle Busch using the Towa engine. And like always, there's buttons, click them. And with that being said, Fluff, Jimmy, please take it away.
If you notice just then how slick my sleeves were, I should really get that looked at before the Daytona 500. Like,
oh my god! I don't even know where to go from there, bro.
Hang on, real quick. I was a fan. Just want to point that out. And R.I.P. All right, continue now. That made me just you just broke me on that one. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Honestly, I'm a big advocate for NASCAR. You know, when they came out and said that they were in favor of like the LGBTQ community, like that was really cool of them. Even despite like backlash from a majority of their fan base, like it was a really cool move for them. So super awesome. But kind of back to why we're all here, looking at Towa versus Majin Vegeta. I hadn't had a chance to play against Towa. I'd been out with work. I just so happened to be able to come. I was like, Bancroft, I want to play this deck. Throw it together for me real quick. So I had no idea what to expect here. So I'm just along for the ride against Towa.
So one of my earlier deck profiles was the Majin Vegeta turn to kill deck. So I was familiar with what the deck wanted to do. I kind of knew the pace that the deck wanted to take. So I set myself up to be able to handle what was coming. And Fluff threw a couple of curveballs on me throughout it and really, really tripped me up. And I made some bad decisions in terms of defensive plays in this matchup, which I think it also goes to show how much of a defensive powerhouse Towa is, especially in the early game. Yeah. Because I think in a lot of matchups, I think you would have won without even having to take your, Hail Mary play.
All right, so I got to call this out real quick. Because last week we called Austin out on something. You know what you just did, right?
Fluff?
No, what did Jimmy? Just did? No, Jimmy just did.
What did I do?
Don't worry about it. But yeah, go over to the deck. Like, what is Towa's primary engine first?
I do want to real quick before we let Jimmy have that. I did sequence incorrectly in that first turn.
Oh yeah.
I had the Bobbity, but with like most leaders, like I want to swing, get a card in my hand, and get kind of like informational knowledge before I start playing. I should have played the Bobbity, then swung with leader, so I would have a card under the Majin Quickening. But I didn't do that. That was my mistake, sequencing incorrectly there. So Jimmy, take it.
I'm so confused on what Bancroft was getting at.
I know what he was getting at.
We'll get to it later. But Towa, what's the idea of the deck?
I know I spoiled the match. It's fucking green, so I knew I was going to lose. But that's a different story. So Towa you have a lot of different paths you can take with Towa, which I think is the biggest strength of the deck, because you could sit down with 10 different Towa players and see 10 different decks. And that's what I love about it, and especially with the sideboard options, you can get into some really nutty plays. But my variation of the deck is running the two Xeno Slug packages. So the yellow and the mono green package. And they just put so much pressure on the board, plus putting really, really good defensive cards. The mono green just stops your opponent from attacking your leader card and unison cards. So it becomes a lightning rod for the deck. And the yellow package is just good at playing out the big body slug that is just a big blocker to get over. Which you do see me play this. I do block with a slug and then pay the 1 energy to play out the 9 drop. So I do get essentially 3 blockers for, the price of 2 energy, which is insanely valuable. But unfortunately, it was not enough to get over Vegeta's aggro. And I do think if you're playing any other style of deck or the aggro version of Towa, I would have died way, way earlier than what Fluff had to push to.
One of the the really interesting things that I like about the Majin Vegeta leader and the engine itself is there's more flexibility than you would think in the engines that you can run as far as like your end. Like you can play a bunch of just beanies and weenies kind of like I'm doing now and just simply recur a lot of little damage on your opponent and push with a lot of little strikes. You can build up with the Majin Quickening to put out the big boo. There's even the expansion Towa boo that I just loaded under the Majin Quickening. That opens for some really explosive Zeno plays that are possible with this deck. Go on.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of the things that I messed up on in that first turn is I have to go down to 3 life in order to be able to resolve the Majin Quickening this turn. And I don't know what to expect from Jimmy. I'm looking at his hand. He's at 4 life. I know what I have the ability to do in my hand. So I'm pushing super hard. Bancroft is sitting off the camera and he's like, you should have activated Overlord before you awoken because you would have got to do Overlord draw on both front and back
Actually,
side.
Jimmy mentioned that first.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Jimmy. But I specifically didn't want to lose both Vegetas on the field because I know that I'm going to need multiple cards on the field for what I want to do.
So, like I said, I knew the pace that the deck wanted to take. I knew where it could go. And I was pacing myself for that, and I did misjudge at one point because you do play V7 drop Xenobu in this deck, and in my head I thought it was 2 energy to evolve on top of the Boo.
Yeah.
So that set me aback when I realized it was 1 energy, and then I started making bad plays at that point, getting around that because I wasn't playing with the idea of you having the ability to play that card that turn.
Yep.
But I did kind of get myself back on track, and then you swerve on me again, which I think is the strength of Majin Vegeta, is that you always have one more play pretty much no matter what you have in your hand.
Yeah. Well, not no matter what. I mean, the deck can fizzle really hard if you don't have the right combination of things. And one of the things that like I did as far as sequencing wrong, and it's probably just more of an incorrect order of auto resolution. I had already swung with the leader at this point, I believe. So the leader should be tapped. But the leader is take a life, draw a card. And I took a life, bottomed a card under Majin Awakening, then drew my card. So I should have drawn another super combo because the card that I drew is a dead extra card, like a Dormant Potential or something like that. And that was kind of me punishing myself at that point for doing that backwards. So I was like, oh man, that I knew what I did, but I wasn't going to take it back because it didn't benefit me. It actually hurt me by doing that incorrectly in that decision, in that instant.
So here I block with the Slug. The Slug has the auto that when you block or KO a battle card, he restands.
Yep.
And that is once per turn. And I do block with it, I restand, and then you are just trying to get rid of the card off field, which is a smart play because I do want to keep that. It's a blocker. It's a hard body to get rid of. And then if you have the ability to remove it, I also get its effects of ripping a card from your hand off your battlefield and then removing 2 markers from a unison that you don't even have. But I do protect the card. I do want to keep it alive just to have that extra block. And spending 2 cards out of my hand is totally worth that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that Slug was honestly like, when I saw that got 2 blocks in a turn, I was like, gosh, this sucks so much. Because I just knew what it was going to do.
And you did super combo and load that Vegeta to the bottom of the deck.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's just so much value. You pay 1 energy off of your leader to play it from the bottom of the deck.
Yeah.
And now that it punishes me for using negates.
Yeah.
I mean, currently I really can't use a negate because I'm tapped out and I do not have the ability to spark out a negate. But that's still a a 30k threat on field because he does have Servant.
Yep.
And that's a big double strike body that I just really don't want to deal with.
Yep.
And you talked about the slug having 2 blocks. With this deck, turn 3 is where things tend to really chop down, and that's when I get my full defensive package out. I already established the slug, and you're basically 2 of your attacks every turn is going into that slug, pretty much no matter what.
Yeah.
So you have to have a minimum of 3 to even get to my leader, and then if I have the other slug out, then now you have to deal with that slug before you can even touch my leader.
Yep. And that honestly that slug was really good. I think without that slug, I would have killed you a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think in any other matchup, like if I was playing, I was going to play Dark Broly this night. If I was playing Dark Broly, you just pretty much won by putting Majin Vegeta on the field.
Yeah, that card is ridiculous good in this deck. I mean, it's basically once you see one, it forces your opponent to deal with it, or you basically get a draw with an attack that punishes counters every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like a dual attack 30,000 that is just a punishing swing. I swung with this is the Boo that is dangerous for me to play, because if you had a Unison up, you could easily counterplay it or KO it. I felt safe in this instance. I didn't feel like you had a way to get rid of it. And that could have been a mistake on my end. So here I'm going to Overlord just to get a draw. I know what I'm doing. I know the play that I'm going for. It's just your hand's kind of thick at this point from all the cards that I've been giving you out of your life. So it's like, do I really want to go for the big kill play here? And
there was a lot of confusion with this player coming up right now.
Yeah, so we did a lot of passing cards back and forth and reading, making sure that we were playing this correctly, because it's been a while since I played Majin Vegeta, and I didn't exactly remember the specific wording.
And this is right, and this is the first time that I've played this deck.
Mm-hmm.
I've played against it, but this is the first time that I actually played it. Part of me wanted to play the 4-drop out and just search the top 7 for the Zeno Boo. So I'm searching my deck, can't find it, and then I realize it's in my hand. And then I'm like, no, I don't want to miss this, because if I miss this, I think I lose. So you'll see I start to throw the 4-drop down out of my hand, and I'm like, no, I'm going to go for the safe play and do the 5.
Yeah, you already searched you did search out the 7-drop with the 3-drop, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you already have the 7-drop in hand. You run 4 of the 7-drops in the deck, which, I mean, if you do play the 4-drop and you want consistency off the top 7, I guess that's the best way to do it.
I think, part of me wants to just take those 4-drops out of this build, because there was another game this night where I relied on using this 4-drop to find a 7-drop, and I just whiffed. And because of that whiff, I just lost. Like, there was no way for me to amount.
I believe you can play the 5-drop off of the Boo. I don't think he specifies non-Boo.
It's Zenos. It says Zenos. So you could play the 5-drop if you see it.
Also, I think the ball plays from deck. I think that was the concern right there.
It's deck or hand.
It's deck or hand. Okay. And it's a 5 or less, Boo.
Oh,
yeah.
It was because you were trying to evolve and you couldn't evolve on top of the 4.
Yeah, well, because I was like, I've got it. I want to do this. So I just went with the safe play instead of trying to hit the top 4. This, unlike the Janemba, does not restand. So if you play the 5 and swing with it, your 7 comes in tapped, which is stupid. So don't swing with the 5 on this. I at least knew that much.
And right here we're reading, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that takes 2 energy. But no, it's just 1 energy to evolve on top of the Boo, which is kind of insane for a dual attack double striker at 25k.
Yeah.
And I was prepared for that Boo to come out this turn, but I was not expecting him to use the 1 energy to play the 3-drop. So as soon as he paid that 1 energy, I was like, okay, he does not have enough to evolve into the Boo, and that's where my first mistake was. I let my guard down and let him go to the 5-drop. I was like, okay, he has to stop at the 5-drop. Then he slams that Boo on the field. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
all right, now I gotta go back to my original game plan, which it did unfortunately force me to awaken, which I did not want to do on this turn.
Yeah. Being forced to awaken on your opponent's turn on turn 2 sucks so much.
Yeah. And I even had a entire play. I was going to use the Towa to clear your field with the slug.
Yeah.
I was going to drop the Dragon Ball, play the slug from my hand, and then I was going to evolve. I was going to awaken, then evolve into the big boy slug and swing at your lead, 25k triple strike. But right here, you have the Belmod play, which is just an absurdly powerful card for aggro. It's absurd. Yeah. And that enables the Broly.
Yeah, and it may not seem like it, but I did combo out everything that I could combo on that last boost swing. Because the rest of the cards in my hand were extras or unisons, which is why I'm thinking about dropping the unison package, just because they're dead combo cards. And so at this point, I get one more Belmod swing, and then I get 2 Brawly swings.
The Broly was not what I was expecting. Like, I knew you ran it in the list, but I was just not expecting it to come out. And unfortunately, if I had just taken the life from Belmod, I would have had a power burst in hand that would have caused your Vegeta to restand.
Yeah.
But I could have comboed out of the Vegeta, most likely. Even if it did take everything in my hand, I would have survived an extra turn, and you had no cards in hand. All I had to do was find a double striker.
Yeah.
But I really, really did not expect that Broly to touch the field that turn.
I was curious if you had a chance to look at his deck prior to the match or not.
I did. We set in, because Bancroft just threw a big box of cards down and said, hey, Fluff, build your deck.
Well, I pulled off most of the cards. We were missing 2 of them.
Most of them. So I knew the Broly was in the list. I was just playing for the idea that I wasn't even going to see the 7-drop Boo that turn. And that's where I started making bad decisions.
That deck with the right hand is degenerate. Yeah. And I say that after my experience playing that deck that night. If you open up correctly and your opponent miscalculates how thoroughly devastating that deck can be, you can catch a win like that on turn 2, because nothing in the deck is limited to 3 or more energy as far as what you or your opponent have to have. So it's not limited like Red Broly. It's not limited like Janemba. It's more closer to turn 2 on, where you go off and you try to win on turn 2 or turn 3, and if you don't win those 2 turns, you probably just lose.
And even as someone that played the turn 2 win variant, I understood what the deck wanted to do. I understood what it could do, and still, you were able to make plays that surprised me in the game. Like, those multiple times that you played a card, and I was like, oh shit! Like, I never even thought about him doing that. And it didn't really throw me off until you tapped the energy to play the 3-drop from the bottom of the deck. And I was like, okay, well, he can't play the 7-drop. And that was just me not knowing my cards, even though I do run that card in my Towa list, but I never pay the 2 energy for it because I always just play it off of the 4-drop Boo.
One of the things that I've kind of picked up on is in green specifically, anytime that you can play a 7 or higher green, it is worth evaluating if you can squeeze in 2 to 3 Belmod and a Brawly Secret Rare. If you're trying to build Xenocell, and Xenocell is the purpose of the deck, of course you don't worry about the Brawly Secret Rare because Xenocell is probably better. But being able to surprise people, because Xenocell is so prevalent, people are not counting how many cards you got, they're counting the energy of the cards that you've got. So it's more likely to catch someone off by surprise if you have like a Bardock Overwhelm, a 7-drop, and then a 1-drop Bobbity on the field, and then you Belmod everything off, play the Brawly out, and you just catch them off guard there because they probably tapped out or saving something that would, or feeling like they're safe because you can't. So they've tapped out. They've used everything they've got to survive that boost swing. They think they're safe. Belmont just messes that up.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. That was our race today. With that being said, let's go over some last words. Jimmy.
Know your plays, read your cards, bluff out.
Okay, and with that being said, Fluff, would you lead us out?
Fluff, now you got to say my thing.
Yeah. If it burns when you play, you probably pee.
Shit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed that up. If it burns when you pee, you probably think Towa's the best deck.
I guess it burns when I pee.